I need you to understand something before I tell you this. There are places in this world that don't follow the rules. Places where physics bends, where your mind starts playing tricks on itself, where you can't trust what you remember versus what actually happened. I found one of those places 3 years ago, and I've been trying to convince myself it wasn't real ever since. This happened in October of 2022. My girlfriend, Maya, and I had been talking about getting away for months, not like a vacation to some resort, but actually getting away. Away from phones constantly buzzing, away from the apartment that always felt too small, away from the version of ourselves we'd become in the city. We both worked these soul-crushing office jobs that left us feeling hollow by Friday afternoon. So when Maya found this cabin rental about 4 hours north, deep in the Cascade foothills, I didn't even look at the photos before saying yes. The listing described it as secluded and off-grid, which honestly sounded perfect. No Wi-Fi, no cell service, just us, some books, and whatever passed for silence anymore. We left on a Thursday morning. Maya drove the first half while I dozed in the passenger seat, and I remember thinking how good it felt to just exist without an agenda. The highway eventually gave way to 2-lane roads, then to poorly maintained county routes with names instead of numbers. Blackwood Pass, Settlers Ridge, roads that felt like they'd been forgotten by everyone except the people who absolutely had to use them. The GPS lost signal about 30 minutes before we were supposed to arrive. Maya had screenshotted the final directions, which told us to look for mile marker 47, then turn onto an unmarked gravel road. Unmarked should have been our first red flag, but we were too committed at that point, too excited about the idea of disconnection to notice we were driving towards something that felt a little too disconnected. We found mile marker 47 around 2:30 in the afternoon. The marker itself was half fallen, leaning against a rotted fence post like it had given up. The gravel road was more like 2 tire tracks with weeds growing between them, and the tree cover was thick enough that it felt like driving into a tunnel. Maya looked at me with this expression I couldn't quite read. Not concern exactly, more like anticipation mixed with the smallest thread of doubt. "This is the right place, yeah?" she asked. I checked the screenshot for the 5th time. Has to be. There's no other mile marker 47. Looking back, I hate how certain I sounded. The cabin appeared after maybe 2 miles of driving through those trees. It sat in a clearing that felt deliberately carved out, like someone had decided this exact spot was where they wanted to exist, and nothing else mattered. The cabin itself looked older than the listing photos suggested. The wood was weathered gray, and the windows had that rippled glass quality you only see in really old buildings. But it had a certain charm to it, that rustic, forgotten kind of charm that people pay extra for without realizing why it feels appealing. We parked and got out. The silence hit me immediately. Not peaceful silence, not the kind of quiet you get in the suburbs at night. This was the absence of sound. No birds, no wind moving through the trees, no distant highway hum, nothing. Just our footsteps on gravel and the sound of our breathing, which suddenly felt too loud. "It's really quiet here," Maya said, and I could hear something in her voice that matched what I was feeling but couldn't name yet. We unloaded our bags and headed inside. The cabin was a single large room with a loft bedroom accessible by a ladder, a small kitchenette, and a wood-burning stove that looked like it had been installed sometime in the 1970s. Everything smelled of cedar and dust and thyme. On the kitchen counter, there was a handwritten note from the owner. "Welcome. Firewood is stacked on the north side. Water from the pump is safe to drink. Please respect the forest. Some guests report unusual dreams. This is normal. Enjoy your stay." Maya laughed when she read it. Unusual dreams, that's one way to market a place.
I didn't laugh. Something about that note felt wrong. Not threatening, but wrong in a way I couldn't articulate. Why would someone warn you about dreams? What did "this is normal" even mean? We spent the rest of the afternoon settling in. Maya made tea on the camping stove we'd brought, while I got the wood stove going. By the time the sun started setting, the cabin had warmed up, and we'd fallen into this easy rhythm. We played cards, we talked about nothing important, we opened a bottle of wine Maya had insisted on bringing. For a few hours, it felt exactly like what we'd wanted, an escape, a pause button on real life. But as it got darker outside, something shifted. The darkness out there wasn't normal. I know how that sounds. Darkness is darkness, right? But this was different. This was the kind of darkness that felt physical, like it had weight and presence. When I looked out the window, I couldn't see the tree line anymore, even though it was only maybe 50 feet away. It was just blackness pressed against the glass. Maya noticed it too. She stood at the window with her arms crossed, staring at nothing. "Do you think there are other people out here?" she asked. "Like other cabins?" "Yeah, or hikers, or anyone." I thought about the 2-mile drive through those trees, the lack of tire tracks, the way the forest felt empty in a way that went beyond just not seeing people. "I don't think so. Why?" She didn't answer right away. "I don't know. It just feels like we're really far from everything, farther than 4 hours should feel." She was right. It did feel that way, like we'd driven not just into the woods, but into some pocket of space that existed separately from the world we'd left. We went to bed around 11. The loft bedroom was small, just big enough for the full-size mattress and our bags. Maya fell asleep almost immediately. I could hear her breathing even out, could feel her body relax next to me. But I couldn't sleep. Something was keeping me awake. Not fear exactly, more like hyper-awareness, like my brain was convinced it needed to stay alert for something it couldn't identify. I lay there in the dark, listening to nothing. And then, maybe an hour after we'd gone to bed, I heard it. Footsteps. Not animal footsteps, not the random sounds of an old building settling. Footsteps, human footsteps, walking in a slow, deliberate circle around the cabin. The sound was muffled, like someone walking carefully through grass or soft dirt. I held my breath, listening. The steps continued, around and around, never stopping, never speeding up or slowing down, just this constant, measured pace. I wanted to wake Maya, but something stopped me. Maybe I was afraid she wouldn't hear it. Maybe I was afraid she would. I don't know. I just lay there, frozen, listening to someone walk circles around the cabin we were sleeping in. The footsteps continued for what felt like 20 minutes. Then they stopped. Not gradually, just stopped, mid-step, like whoever was out there had simply vanished. I waited in the silence, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might wake Maya, but nothing else happened. Eventually, exhaustion won, and I fell asleep. I had a dream that night, or maybe it wasn't a dream. I still can't decide. In it, I was standing outside the cabin. It was that same heavy darkness, but somehow I could see perfectly. There were 5 figures standing in a circle around me, but I couldn't make out their faces. They weren't threatening, they weren't moving, they were just there, watching. And then one of them spoke, but not with words. It was more like I understood what they were communicating directly into my mind. They said, "You're remembering wrong." I woke up gasping. Maya was already awake, sitting up in bed with her hand on my shoulder. "Did you feel that?" she asked. Her voice was shaking. "Feel what?" "The cabin. It moved, like someone picked it up and set it back down." I wanted to tell her she'd been dreaming, but I couldn't, because I'd felt it too. This subtle shift, like reality had hiccuped, like the world had skipped a frame. We climbed down from the loft as the first gray light of dawn started filtering through the windows. That's when we saw it. The furniture had been rearranged. Not dramatically, not like someone had trashed the place, but it had definitely been moved. The table was 3 feet to the left of where it had been. The 2 chairs were positioned differently. The rug was rotated 90 degrees, and our bags, which we'd left by the door, were now lined up perfectly along the wall, arranged by size. Maya grabbed my arm. "We need to leave, right now." I wanted to agree. Every instinct I had was screaming at me to get out. But something else was happening. Something I didn't understand. I felt calm. Not naturally calm. Artificially calm. Like someone had reached into my brain and turned down the panic dial manually. "Let me check outside first," I heard myself say, even though I didn't want to say it. I opened the door. The clearing looked exactly the same as it had yesterday. Trees surrounding us, gravel where we'd parked, our car sitting exactly where we'd left it. But something was different. It took me a second to figure out what. The car was facing the wrong direction. We'd parked facing the cabin. Now it was facing the road, like someone had turned it around during the night, without us hearing the engine, without us hearing anything. "Maya," I said quietly, "come look at this." She came to the door but wouldn't step outside. When she saw the car, her face went white. "That's not possible," she whispered. "We would have heard it. We would have heard the engine, the tires on the gravel, something." But we hadn't heard anything, except those footsteps, those slow, deliberate footsteps circling the cabin like someone performing a ritual. We packed in complete silence. Neither of us said what we were both thinking, that whatever happened last night wasn't random, that it had been intentional, that something in these woods had done this to us, and we had no idea why. The drive out felt longer than the drive in. The gravel road seemed to stretch on forever, and the trees felt closer, like they were leaning in toward us. Maya drove fast, faster than was probably safe on that terrain, but I didn't tell her to slow down. When we finally hit the paved county road, we both just sat there, breathing hard like we'd been running. "What happened back there?" she asked. I didn't have an answer. I still don't.
Here's the thing that keeps me up at night. We went back through our phones after we got cell service again. Maya had taken photos when we first arrived. Photos of the cabin, the clearing, the view from the loft window. When we looked at them, they were all wrong. The cabin in the photos wasn't the same cabin we'd stayed in. It was similar, but different. The door was on the wrong side, the windows were arranged differently, and in the background of one photo, barely visible in the tree line, there was a figure, just standing there, watching. We never talked about reporting it. Who would we tell? What would we even say? That someone rearranged furniture and turned our car around without making a sound? That we both had weird dreams and felt like reality glitched? They'd think we were on drugs or making it up for attention. But here's what really scares me. A week after we got back, I got an email. No subject line, no sender name, just a message that said, "Thank you for respecting the forest. You're always welcome back." Maya and I broke up 2 months later, not because of the cabin exactly, but because neither of us could look at the other without remembering, without feeling like we'd experienced something we weren't supposed to survive, and somehow that made us wrong for each other, like we were witnesses to something that fundamentally changed us. I still think about that note on the counter. Some guests report unusual dreams. This is normal. How many people had stayed there before us? How many people had experienced what we experienced? And why did the owner write about it like it was just a quirky feature of the property, like uneven water pressure or a sticky door? Sometimes late at night, I'll be lying in bed in my new apartment, and I'll hear footsteps, slow, deliberate, circling, and I have to remind myself that I'm on the 4th floor, that there's no one outside my window, that I'm not at mile marker 47 anymore. But part of me wonders if that's true. Part of me wonders if I ever really left.
Because here's the thing nobody talks about. When something impossible happens to you, when you experience something that shouldn't exist, it doesn't just live in your past, it lives in your present, every day, every night. It becomes part of how you see the world. You start noticing things other people don't notice, patterns that might not be patterns, coincidences that feel a little too coordinated. 3 months ago, I was driving through a different part of the state for work. I wasn't anywhere near the Cascades, but I passed a mile marker 47. And for just a second, I swear I saw that gravel road, that unmarked turnoff with the rotted fence post, in a place it couldn't possibly be. I didn't turn, I kept driving, but I think about it constantly. Maya texted me last week, first time in over a year. She didn't say hello, didn't ask how I was doing, she just sent a photo. It was a screenshot of a cabin rental listing, different website, different name, but the same cabin, the exact same cabin, same weathered wood, same rippled windows, same note about unusual dreams. Except the listing said it was located in Vermont, over 2,000 miles from where we stayed. I haven't responded yet. I don't know what to say. Part of me wants to ask her if we think we should warn people, but another part of me, the part that remembers how that artificial calm felt, wonders if warning people is even possible. Maybe the cabin only shows itself to people who are looking for exactly what we were looking for, an escape, a disconnection, a place that exists outside the normal rules. And maybe, once you find a place like that, it never really lets you leave. Before I go, I want to ask you something. If you've made it this far, if you've listened to this whole story, do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe to Midnight Zephyr if you haven't already, because I need to know I'm not alone in this. I need to know other people are hearing these stories and recognizing that the world is stranger than we pretend it is, that there are places we shouldn't go, experiences we shouldn't seek out, and once we have them, we can't unknow what we've learned. I'll probably never know what really happened at that cabin, whether it was something supernatural or just a very elaborate human prank, whether those figures in my dream were real or just my brain trying to process fear. But I know this, I'm different now. Maya's different now, and whatever we encountered in those woods, it's still out there, still waiting at mile marker 47, still arranging furniture while people sleep, still turning cars around in perfect silence, still welcoming guests, still asking them to respect the forest, still promising them that the unusual dreams are normal. And the worst part is, sometimes late at night when I can't sleep, I think about going back, not because I want to, but because part of me feels like I left a piece of myself in that clearing, and the only way to get it back is to return. But I won't, I can't, because I'm afraid of what I'd find, or worse, I'm afraid of what would find me. Some doors, once you close them, should stay closed. Some roads, once you drive away, shouldn't be traveled again. And some places, no matter how much they call to you, should remain exactly where you left them. In the darkness, in the silence, in the space between the world you know and the world that exists underneath it, waiting.